Okay, as of 8:15 p.m. on October 26th, the Joe Rogan Donald Trump podcast has hit 21 million people just on YouTube. That's not counting the other platforms. That's not counting Spotify. I haven't seen the Spotify numbers yet. I guess that's going to come out eventually. But they sat down, or the America sat down to watch Joe Rogan and Donald Trump have a long-form podcast. This tells us that ABC, NBC, CBS, they are done. They can't pull these numbers if they wanted to. And this is some of the posts that went out on social media are getting millions and millions of views. The individual clips are getting millions and millions of views. And Joe Rogan said it best. He said, it wasn't him that said it, it was a commenter on the video. Imagine telling someone 15 years ago that the host of Fear Factor and the host of The Apprentice talking to each other on a podcast would be the most important political event of 2024. And this is 100% true. This shows us what I've been saying since Donald Trump started on this podcast tirade, that long-form podcasts are a prerequisite for anybody running for political office. If you want to run for political office, you got to sit down for a long-form podcast. You got to talk for at least an hour, maybe 2 hours, talk about anything and everything, life, family, just it doesn't have to be political, but let people see the real side of you. Donald Trump has done that time and time again. Now, this particular podcast was very political in most of its commenting, but most of the commentary. But he sat down and talked about fighting. He talked about tariffs. He talked about the economy. He talked about foreign wars. He talked about health. He talked about RFK Jr. He discussed everything that we wanted to hear him discuss. But I do have some critiques. Let's go ahead and get into this. This is a good one. It's going to be a short video, so hang with me. Let's go for it. I'm Jared. This is Continue Freedom. Okay, and welcome back to Continue Freedom. If this is your first time here, welcome aboard. If you're a returning guest, I want to thank you so much for coming back. Now, I have been awake since 3 o'clock in the morning this morning, so I'm going to battle through this one, but I had to make this video because I was so amped up to see it. In fact, it's the first thing I did when I woke up this morning. I checked my YouTube feed to see if this podcast had been posted. It had. I watched the entire thing before I actually went in to do my daily work for the day. And so here's what I got from this. First off, the comments were overwhelmingly positive, like pro Donald Trump, in favor of this podcast even taking place. America wanted to see this. But like I was saying, this tells us that ABC, NBC, CBS, all the mainstream outlets are done. They are done because for a president to sit down and talk for 3 hours about anything and everything from, fighters, boxers, MMA fighters, boxers, talked about Dana White. They talked about Ukraine. They talked about tariffs. They talked about all the big topics, all the big issues. Talked about RFK Jr. and how Donald Trump plans on using him to make America healthy again. It was unbelievable. And it seemed to me like it was 90% Trump and 10% Rogan. And so Trump was sitting there firing off everything. And there, admittedly, he did some of his, what he calls the weave. So somebody asks him a question and he starts to address the question. He kind of brings it out to the side and then comes back to the question, that sort of thing. I don't necessarily like the term, but that's what how he describes it. But at the end of the day, he sat down and discussed all this stuff for 3 hours, nonstop, full speed. And then, you know what he did? After he left a 3-hour podcast, which, by the way, is mentally taxing. It is difficult for you to be firing on all 8 cylinders for a 3-hour podcast. I've never done one longer than 2 hours. And he went and did a rally in front of a live audience, in front of a crowd. It was unbelievable. And the fact the guy can do that at 78 years old is unprecedented. And this sets the standard. This really does. That I don't care if you're running for the House, if you're running for the Senate, if you're running for the presidency, I don't care if you're running for a state legislature seat in your state legislature, you should be required to sit down on a long-form podcast, answer anything, everything, unprepared, and show the real side of you as a politician. That should be our standard. And if people aren't willing to do that, it should raise red flags. And in fact, I said that a few weeks ago in one of my other episodes. Now, I'm going to show you some of the, some of the best of clips. And it's been brought up, obviously, Elon Musk was going to, he gets a great deal of reach, so it's good whenever he's posting this sort of stuff. But let's listen to a couple of these clips because, I mean, they were fantastic. And there's a lot of subject matter in this 3-hour podcast. I'm not going to be able to get to all of it, but let's listen to this first piece of it here.
Creepy, corrupt business. And the media, to a large extent, acts as a propaganda arm for the Democratic Party.
It's not even believable.
Yeah, it's bizarre to watch. And most young people, I think, are aware of it. I think most boomers still, unfortunately, read the newspapers and believe in CNN.
But it's getting younger. Let me tell you, it's getting, for us, for a conservative.
Yes.
And I consider myself a person.
It's the internet. It's because the internet's giving people information that they're not getting from anywhere else. And they like the very fine people hoax, the Russiagate hoax, all these different things that they've done. They tried to pin on you. That's like it's a clear distortion of what you actually said.
The bloodbath hoax.
Yeah,
I was talking about the auto industry.
Yes.
It's a bloodbath because Japan and China are taking our auto. And I said, it's a bloodbath. They said, he used the word bloodbath.
He said, if you don't win, it's going to be a bloodbath because they're going to take over.
Yeah,
that's exactly what you said.
It's a terrible thing they do.
But that's the problem with propagandists because they take things out of context. And ultimately what they do is they diminish their own credibility because people don't want to listen to them anymore because they see that they've done that and they recognize what's going on and they feel insulted.
Okay, so first off, this was an amazing point by Joe. Here's what kind of bugged me every now and then, and this is Trump being Trump. He jumps in, and it's like, let Joe Rogan cook. I don't know how familiar he is with the Joe Rogan podcast, but there were several instances where I was like, Mr. Trump, President Trump, please let the man cook. Let the guy go, do his thing, let him talk, fill a little bit of time. And I felt like I don't know if he knew or found out right beforehand just how big this was probably going to be, and so he felt like he needed to interject. There were times where I thought, yes, we're here to hear from Donald Trump. Everybody wants to listen to Donald Trump, but they're there for Joe Rogan too, because Joe Rogan is the guy who directs the conversation, and he's the guy who steers that sort of ship. And so Trump felt like he needed to jump in every time, and there were just a few times in there where I was like, sir, can you please just let him cook? Just let Joe Rogan cook and don't interrupt as much. But I mean, part of it is just Trump being Trump. He commands the room, he commands the conversation, and I respect that about him because it's a trait that not enough people have, and that definitely Joe Biden doesn't have, or that Kamala Harris doesn't have. They don't command a room, they don't command a conversation, and Donald Trump does. So this next clip, they were talking about the left and how they have shifted over time, and I thought this was an amazing point. But let's listen to this one real quick.
The rebels are Republicans now.
Yep.
They're like, you want to be a rebel, you want to be punk rock, you want to buck the system. You're a conservative now. That's how crazy. And then the liberals are now pro silencing criticism. They're pro censorship online. They're talking about regulating free speech and that regulating the First Amendment. It's bananas to watch.
Joe, they come after their political opponent.
Well, I
got more guys. I always say, I kid, but I'm not kidding. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the meanest of them all. He'd kill you in 2 seconds if he didn't like you, right? I've been under investigation more than Alphonse Capone, only because it's political opponent stuff. And I've won. I won the big case in Florida. I'm winning the other stuff. You win. But you know what they did? They did something that's only done in third world countries. They came after their political opponent.
Yes.
I could have put crooked Hillary in jail.
Well, not only that, but they're weaponizing it by saying that that's what you're going to do once you get in office.
Isn't it great?
By ignoring what they're doing right now. It's crazy.
I heard it. Somebody was defending me today. They said, no, they say that's what you're doing to him. They're going, he's going to put us in jail. He's going to invest.
That's what you're doing.
That's what you're doing to him.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, will you do that? Will you do that to him to them if you win? The presidency has tremendous power. I could have put crooked Hillary
I
in
respected
jail.
that you didn't because what you said was it would be bad for the country.
100%. 100%. This is the party that accuses Donald Trump of what they themselves are doing. And we can see this time and time and time again. Look at my last episode. Go back and watch my last episode. I gave several examples of them accusing Donald Trump of what they themselves are doing. And this is the Joseph Goebbels methodology, right? You repeat a lie long enough, and eventually people will believe it. And if you want to get into, Marx and all of those folks, accuse your enemy of what you yourself are doing. This is the playbook for the left. This is a playbook for the Democrat Party. But it's interesting that it has become, the classical liberals used to be the ones that were, we're just free speech, man, that sort of thing. And it's just all the classical principles. And the Republicans, even when I was growing up, were the party of war and all this stuff. The script has completely flipped. And the left has become the party of war, the party of censorship, the party of shutting down any political dissent. They have become what their ideology truly is, and that is Marxist in nature. You have to shut down your political opposition, and they have been doing this to Trump. And the fact that after all these years, he has withstood that barrage of the left, it is unbelievable. And he's still going. We've seen moments where he was like, yeah, I kind of wish that, I guess everybody wanted me to run again, so I'm running again because the people want me to run again. It's almost like he felt so defeated that he wasn't going to do it, but now he gets in front of live crowds, and he is, he's way up in the polls, and the poly market has him leading monstrously. In fact, there's a poly market out there that was saying that we're going to have a monstrous red wave, so we're going to sweep all the elections. It's going to be the whole down ballot, and everything is going to go the way of the Republicans in a lot of surprise instances. So it's true. What they were saying is 100% true. But again, he was jumping in, and I was like, just let Joe Rogan cook. Let him cook, Mr. Trump. Not that I can't criticize it. 20 million people have watched it. There's probably going to be 50 or 60 million people that see this one. But it was unbelievable. Now, Trump on the rumor is that Kamala not rumor. I think Joe Rogan actually confirmed it in this podcast that they were in talks to have Kamala come on, and Joe said, I would have her on, this sort of thing. But Trump made some comments on whether or not she could actually handle the going on the Joe Rogan podcast. I thought this was pretty brilliant.
One of the things I like about doing a show like this, can you imagine Kamala doing this show?
I could imagine her doing this show.
She'd be laying on the floor.
She was supposed to do it, and she might still do it, and I hope she does.
She's not going to do it.
I will talk to her like a human being. I would try to have a conversation with her. If she did this kind of an
interview with you, I hope she does, because it would be a mess. She'd be laying on the floor comatose. She'd be saying, call in the medics.
I think we'd have a fine conversation. I think I'd be able to talk to her. I wouldn't try to interview her. I'd just try to have a conversation with her and hopefully get to know her as a human being.
Okay, great answer by Joe, but a classic line by Donald Trump, because he's like, he's not wrong. He really isn't wrong. You can watch her in a town hall. A town hall is supposed to be similar to a long-form podcast where you can have a conversation. You get a question from an audience member. You answer in a very honest way. You answer in a very original way, a personal way, because you were sitting there looking at the voter who's asking the potential future president of the United States a very substantive question about policy, foreign policy or domestic policy, whatever it happens to be. And you're supposed to be able to answer in a way that connects to that person. I have watched every single town hall of Kamala Harris. She is incapable of doing that. Joe Rogan is going to see through a cackle. He's going to see through the word salad. He will call her out on a word salad. He did it to Donald Trump. There were times where he said, wait, let's get back to this. No, but that's not what I asked. The question was this, that, and the other, and he forced Donald Trump to answer. In particular, when he talked about how he would end the war in Ukraine, how he would fix what's going on in the Middle East, and he said, Donald Trump was forced to be honest. He said, "Look, I can't tell you exactly what I would do, because if I say exactly what I would do and exactly what I would say, I wouldn't be able to do it in the future." And that's a boldly honest answer for a presidential candidate, but he forced him to say it. So he pulled a lot out of Donald Trump. And then this is one that has gotten millions and millions and millions of plays by many, many different people. But here's one about ending the income tax. Ending the income tax. I think this one was posted by Luke Rudkowski.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure. But why not? Because ready? Our country was the richest relatively in the 1880s and 1890s, a president who was assassinated named McKinley. He was the tariff king. He spoke beautifully of tariffs. His language was really beautiful. We will not allow the enemy to come in and take our jobs and take our factories and take our workers and take our families unless they pay a big price. And the big price is tariffs. And he'd speak like that, but he was right. And then around in the early 1900s, they switched over stupidly to, frankly, an income tax. And you know why? Because countries were putting a lot of pressure on America. We don't want to pay tariffs. Please don't. You know, believe me, they control our politicians. If you look at the kind of numbers that these guys make.
It is very, very true. We used to pay, like, tariffs is how we funded things. Before an income tax, it was done through tariffs. I mean, there's zero historical question about that. Similar thing with war. If we wanted to go to war, you sold war bonds, and however much people were willing to donate to the war, give to the war, invest in the war, showed their favorability of the war. And yet we go to an income tax, and then we of course, we're firing up the printing presses now as well. So they're taking all this money. And, you know, the president of El Salvador, Bukele, when Bukele came over, he made a very good point at CPAC where he said, they're taking your money in taxes every year. When you buy something, you're taxed. When you drive, you tax. When you know, everything is taxed. And how many times can you tax the same dollar over and over again? And yet they still print money. So if they can print money out of thin air, what's the point in the tax? The point in the tax is to keep people down. The point in the tax is to reduce your wealth, your overall buying power, to keep you subservient to the federal government. Meanwhile, they're still printing money, and they can control how wealthy you are, how poor you are, how easily you can. It takes massive growth to get up into the next level. I mean, not that it wouldn't on any other circumstance, but this printing money out of thin air is a tax on the middle class. It's a tax on the working class. So it's taxes, taxes, taxes. And Trump says, well, let's just fund the federal government through tariffs. This is how we used to do it. And you can get into a lot of, a lot of economic arguments about, being backed by gold and that sort of thing. And, there's differences between then and us running on our play money or, our fiat currency, our monopoly money that we have now. But nonetheless, it was an interesting concept. It was something I did not expect him to say. And I thought he handled it extremely well. Now, it did not go over well with a lot of the people on the left, of course. They came out with their normal little, this turned into a crybaby thing. One of the people was the Krasensteins, which is absolutely hysterical. I love seeing the Krasensteins freak out. And if you don't know who the Krasensteins are, they are very, very leftist, like straight up leftist acolytes. And Brian Krasenstein, by the way, these guys are in deep trouble for their URLs and their hosting websites that were, pornographic in nature, and there was some nefarious activity going on behind the scenes. I won't get into the details of it, but Brian Krasenstein came out and said, "Look," and this is their desperation, right? This shows their desperation because they say what they said in 2020, what they said in 2016. If Donald Trump wins, I'm leaving the country. Listen to this.
So this is an important message.
Yeah.
This election is incredibly close. You have to vote. No matter what side you're on, you have to vote. This election will determine the next several years, probably decades. If Trump wins, I'm out of here. I'm going to pack my belongings.
And if you read the comments, he said, I'll probably go away for, he's not talking about forever. So he's not doing the whole Whoopi Goldberg thing where she says, I'm moving to Canada. It's like, adios, Whoopi. Like you will not be missed. And his comments are, a lot of people giving him the bye, goodbye. We're not really worried about it. But this is the temper tantrum that they throw. And they think that they're going to sway vulnerable, low information voters by saying, well, I'm just going to leave the country if this happens. Like, it's going to be that bad, so you have to vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Otherwise, all your favorite people are going to leave the country. We're not going to have Beyonce anymore, or we're not going to have Jay-Z anymore, or Brian Krasenstein. Not that they're on anywhere near the same level, but you're going to be without me. You won't have me around to be chirping in your ear, telling you how Donald Trump is Hitler. You're going to have a lot more money in your pocket. Inflation's going to go down. The job market's going to get better. We're going to, gas is going to be cheaper. So all your other products are going to become cheaper. All these good things are going to happen. But I say he's Hitler, and I won't tell you that anymore for the next 4 years if he gets elected. In my opinion, it's like, adios, buddy. Enjoy your trip. Go get a suntan. You need one. You need one bad. But there are some Democrats who get it. And Van Jones is one of the ones who gets it. Listen to this. This was, I will never say that Van Jones has brilliant comments or anything that should be celebrated, but listen to this real quick.
Have a politics that says, if progressives have a politics that says, all white people are racist, all men are toxic, and all billionaires are evil, it's kind of hard to keep them on your side. And so we might want to think about, if you're chasing people out of the party, you can't be mad when they leave. And maybe if we had a different politics, we actually said dignity for everybody, everybody's respected, and we need you, more people might stay.
Okay. This is coming from the guy who has been saying all of those things until they're in a moment of desperation. When Kamala Harris is losing, when they have a terrible candidate with terrible policies or who can't even enunciate the policies, all of a sudden he comes out and says, maybe we shouldn't be saying this. Well, yeah, Van. Yeah. Where have you been for your party for the past 8 years? Because this is all we've heard from him. So now when things get desperate, they say, well, maybe we ought to start playing moderate. Maybe we ought to cool the temperature down or take the temperature down just a little bit. Oh, it's so silly. And I will tell you, the desperation is very, very real. This lady here, her name is JoJo. What is it? JoJo from Jers. Very vulgar account, by the way. So I do not recommend following it. But she is a far, far left acolyte. And this is what she posted about a Kamala Harris rally. And when at first glance, it's like, whoa, this is monstrous. It's monstrous. And I guess in Texas, there's the Texas flag. But why are people, how in the world does Kamala Harris draw a crowd like that? Well, I will tell you, it is the party of deception. This is the party of deception, because here you have some folks who are ticked off because they were told Beyonce was performing. This is how they got a crowd. They had to lie. People angry. People ticked off. There's here, let me show you the second video. This is of the crowd booing Kamala Harris because, oh, Beyonce's going to be here. Oh, no, wait. It's just Kamala Harris. We needed the photo op. Everybody's ticked off. There were people that thought that Beyonce was going to perform. Beyonce didn't perform. They were ticked off. It's the party of deception. That's the only way that they can get a crowd to show up. Donald Trump, everybody knows it's just Donald Trump. He's going to sit there and cook. He's going to cook for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long he has to be there. But they have to lie to their voters to get them to show up. It's so messed up. But I will end by let's do a Donald Trump weave here. Let's go back to the original point. And that is, Donald Trump is connecting with people in a very real way because he's sitting down for these long-form interviews, these long-form podcasts. He's having conversations about things outside of politics, things that are relatable to average people. A lot of the viewership, yes, is male. Whether it's Lex Friedman or it's Joe Rogan or, whoever it happens to be. Yeah, it's about 75% male, but there's a large female audience in there as well. It's young people, which Donald Trump mentioned in one of the previous videos, is that, yeah, there's the young crowd is really coming up conservative. They are really coming around to be conservative individuals, and they're kind of bucking this Democrat system that they have seen for their entire life through elementary school and high school and college. And Donald Trump says, no, look, there's actual masculinity over here on the right. There's actual leadership over here on the right, and that resonates with young men. It would have resonated with me if we were in this political environment when I was coming up in high school and in college. I was in the mundane politics. I was in the establishment politics. But had I been a little bit more aware, even when I was in the military, if I had been a little more aware of the political establishment and the deep state that was actually controlling things, and somebody like Donald Trump came along, I would have latched onto him with my talons and not let go and said, this is the man that needs to take us to the next level. And it's not that he's going to fix everything. We have to remember that. Yeah, 2024 is going to be great. We have to be looking to 2028. We have to be looking to 2032. We have to be looking into the future and who are the people that are going to take us closer to the Constitution, closer to the Bill of Rights, closer to the freedoms that people like myself grew up loving and respecting and cherishing, and get us further away from this authoritarian state that the left and the uniparty has given us. So that's all I've got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below, and I truly, truly appreciate it. I'll see you in the next video. God bless you. God bless America.